Hello everyone and welcome back to the DMside. Today's video we are focusing on chapter 4 of Waterdeep Dragonheist. The players are moving through it pretty well, to be fair, and we're going to talk about where to next. So give this video a like, maybe subscribe to the channel. Let's jump into the video. Alright everyone, so jumping straight into it, let's just very quickly recap how last session ended. The players finished the Grelhund Villa scenario in chapter 3, and they were given the information, though I said the graveyard, they're not going to a graveyard. They're actually going to an alley in the Trades Ward. They were told that is where the stone was sent, to a gentleman by the name of Fenris Stormcastle. So that's where they went. They knew the chase was on, though they'd been not badly damaged, but definitely hurt, but they still had a good amount of health in them and some resources, so they went straight into the Trades Ward and began looking. One thing that they did is they kind of just asked everyone, hey, do you know who Fenris Stormcastle is? Not everyone knows who this guy is. Like, he's a nobody, really. He's hiding in the city, essentially, because he's done atrocities that the Lord's Alliance are after him for. And he figured, don't run away from them, hide in their city. Like, it's very funny. It's just gone around, hey, do you know this guy? So they went to a tavern court that I just named the Underdark, and so it was run underground by a drow, and then they were like, do you know this guy? And he's like, I have no idea who you're talking about. So they went back up, and eventually they managed to get out the Nimblewright detector, funnily enough. Now last week again I did say it was already destroyed. That was a bit of a mistake by me. It wasn't destroyed, it was sent off, it did deliver the stone, and it was still alive until the players started to kind of get closer to it. So they actually used that to track it down to find Fenris. And so when they got to his house, they saw that the hinges were off the door, the place was absolutely ransacked, everything was, there was like a beholder symbol painted on the wall in blood, and a dead Nimblewright. Because as they were moving closer, it actually began, the Nimblewright detector slowed down. So they picked up its head, and they later on used that to get the reward, which was 500 gold, and we'll just say that they did that because they did, and we don't have to worry about where it falls in the story. It was more in passing, just, oh, we better go get that gold. So they did. But from there, they started to investigate the place a bit more, and Lariel Silverhand, the open lord of Waterdeep, shows up looking for Fenris, I can't remember his name. Sparrow is anyone who was there to speak with Lariel Silverhand, as she said, go and get your friends. And so he went upstairs, said that she was downstairs, nobody listened, and then eventually they came downstairs. She explained that Fenris had been picked up by the Lord's Alliance for his atrocities, and that she unfortunately was also looking to retrieve the stone and retrieve the gold for the city. And she offered the players, she said, hey, look, if you find this stone and you retrieve this gold, I, as the open lord of Waterdeep, will owe you a favor. So they took that for face value, not realizing that that probably wasn't really going to happen, although kind of accepting that on some level in Dungeons and Dragons as meta, you know, you don't try to metagame, but there are some things where you go, this is the hook, we shouldn't say no to this. So they took it like that. To be fair, they've been inciting everyone else in this game. They decided for the first time, nah, Open Lord of Waterdeep, she's fine. Secretly disguised Jarlaxle Bainray. So now they're kind of working for him without realizing. He then, she then said, well, hey, we know that Xanathar has many, many cellars underground in the sewers. You should go and investigate those. Perhaps the stone has already been passed on to one of his advisors. So I want you to go and investigate that. Find the stone, meet me at the Seven Masts Theatre. Now, a really great thing happened, and I'm going to tell you at the end of the video, so keep watching towards the end. I'm not going to tell you where, just keep watching, because it's really cool. So, off they went into the cellars. Giono and Jagged Jack, when he was around, they kind of gallivanted around there all the time, so it made it a lot easier for me to justify them understanding kind of the tips and tricks as to finding where these secret cellars were and all that stuff. So, off they went down into the underground cellar, into the sewer, found some secret doors, which was good because they avoided some goblins. And then they, first of all, went into door number 1 on the left and fought 7 troglodytes, which were very cool. Definitely a lot of fun to battle. Very, very weak though, so I was surprised. But I guess the players are really level 4 at this point, so 7 enemies against 5 level 4s. The numbers are still technically against them. Plus they actually hadn't rested yet. So off they went off to the side, they battled the troglodytes, then they went upstairs from a staircase they saw and found out that this was the ruins of an old actual wine cellar for a tavern above. And so they came downstairs realizing that they weren't meant to leave and found another door. They went on in and straight away battle erupted. There were 3 Duergar in there. They went to go one went to go get their boss. There were 2 goblins in there who were manning the arrow slits by the main entrance. There was also a gnome tinkerer there who they outright just murdered straight away. No questions asked, but to be fair, he did look like he was working for them. Unfortunately, secretly, he's a harper. So ran in, Hootie just absolutely gutted this guy. He was working on a really, really cool invention, which is it's a beholder. It's a metal beholder, and the eye stalks that are off of it, they shoot light. So it's like a rave, which is amazing. And so his job was trying to figure out how to make it float, because Xanathar wants to use it as a symbol that floats above the city when he takes over and commands it. And it's kind of like a he's always watching sort of thing. So he was working on that. The players were utterly terrified because I got a beholder and I laid it down. They're like, is that the miniature or is it just a big object? It's like, no, that's what it looks like. Why, you got a problem? That's what it looks like. So that was really fun. So battle ensued. Eventually some kobolds came out, and then the Duergar leader actually hung back in another room, enlarged, and tried to fight off who was left at the end. But they all lost, which was great. They killed everyone. They found the fake stone, and they cast Detect Magic to see if it actually gave off any magical aura, realizing that there's actually nothing magical about it. They must have got a fake stone and went, okay, what do we do now? We're gonna have to just kind of go and report because we've got nothing else. So we'll go see Lariel Silverhand at the Seven Mask Theatre and report. But first, let's get this cool beholder thing that Watch just fixed, made float and flash lights everywhere, because we want to put it in the tavern and use it as like the jukebox. We're gonna modify it, put a little coin slot so everyone can slot in a gold coin or a copper piece or a silver piece or whatever, and it will play music and set off these lights, which is gonna be a really fun thing to have going on at the end of the campaign when they celebrate being victorious, if they're victorious. Whew, how'd they get it there, you ask? Well, it's winter, and in the blizzard, it's hard to see. So, I mean, I just justified the fact that people are staying indoors. They wouldn't really see much looking out the window, but they ended up rolling it all the way back up to the North Ward and created this giant snowball around it. And eventually then Watch just used his flamethrower to get rid of it and just melt it back down. Placed it inside, and we're very happy with themselves, realizing, hey, this thing looks like the plushie that Zoblob gave us like ages ago that we sit on the bar. Maybe that's magical. Maybe there's a problem with that, because that looks like, you know, it's kind of sketchy. Xanathar guild having it, building it. So Damien cast Detect Magic and found out that, yeah, the plushie has actually been spying on them this entire time, which I did mention it about 2 or 3 videos ago now, that's why Xanathar has always been ahead of them and they haven't seen Xanathar's guild in quite a while. So very, very cool that they kind of figured that out. It was very fun. The players really enjoyed it. So moving on, they decided, okay, well, we gotta go to the Seven Mask Theatre because we gotta see old Silverhand, the open lord of Waterdeep. They headed on down. They got inside. They spoke with the attendant there, who had a ridiculous voice. I have no idea how. You know when you're playing and these voices just come out and then you kind of go, I have to replicate this? That's what happened. I didn't plan this at all, and it was just a very interesting character. And we all laughed and loved it a lot. So eventually they went on, and they didn't meet Lariel Silverhand. They met Jarlaxle Bainray again, but disguised as the stage manager who was working for Lariel Silverhand. They passed on the information, and I played it off that he was really upset that they hadn't gotten the right stone. But he played it cool. He composed himself and came back and said, well, you know what? Fenris Stormcastle has actually now been taken in by the City Watch and is in a courthouse. He must have the information as to where the stone has gone. So I really want you to infiltrate. I would advise not fighting because that will probably end in your death. Infiltrate and get the information. It is extremely important. You will get the stone. You will get the information as to where the stone might be. So they went to the courthouse thinking, all right, Hootie is going to be the talker because he's charismatic. Everyone else can kind of hang back. So at the courthouse, Hootie went in and he met with Magister Hester Barch. And she's an old 70-year-old woman who doesn't really get cranky, not very easily, pretty understanding, but very firm with the law. And, oh, did I mention, sorry, she can read minds, which is amazing. So she actually sat down with Hootie, and Hootie, first of all, said, I'm going to be the legal representation for Fenris, and I'm allowed to do that. And she questioned, are you sure that you can do that? He rolled a terrible deception, and being the nice DM that I am, gave him that sort of that extra chance, because she is pretty understanding, and said, you know, I hope that you're aware that impersonating a lawyer, when you are not part of the appropriate guild, the Magisters Protectors of Waterdeep, means that you actually can't do that. You'll be subject to, I think it's 10 days in prison, a flogging, and a 500 gold fine. So he retracted his statement, understood the situation, and decided to leave, and decided to use the code legal against Waterdeep. So he went outside, and just while that was happening, Damien and Sparrow realized that they were part of the appropriate guilds, and so they decided to be the representatives for Furnius. Had a good chat about how they might go about their case. They got their paperwork to see if they could try and get him out of things, spoke about what he was in for, and eventually went down and spoke with him. And we got in this deadlock of, unfortunately, he said, basically, yeah, I know where the stone is, I have that information, but if you can't get me out of here, I'm not going to give it to you. And they did try to convince him to kind of slip up and give the information, but at the end of the day, that's all he's got. Getting that information really does involve them getting him out, or figuring out another way to pay him off where he doesn't lose his life. So they hit a brick wall and they went, let's go and investigate the house, not realizing that they've already been to the house. And after that, off they went, realizing, hey, Giorno has a potion of mind reading that he got from Davil Starsong for killing Schemo Weirdbottle. So we should go and tell him to drink that and go talk to that guy. But he can't talk to him because he's not allowed to represent him, so he won't be allowed to go down to the courthouse. And it got very confusing. Hootie, in the meantime, decided, again, to use the code legal against Waterdeep, so he walked out and brandished a weapon and made a big show about it. The guards crash tackled him, threw him into the jail, and he tried to also talk with Stormcastle, saying, you know, oh, I killed a Magister, we're in this together. But he didn't really have anywhere to go with it, and Stormcastle was like, yeah, but how are we gonna get out? What are you gonna do? And who didn't have anything, so kind of sat there for a bit. Meanwhile, Giorno and Watch went, let's go get Rena Neverember. First of all, to help us get Hootie out, because this idiot just went and got himself arrested. And secondly, maybe we can get a pardon for Stormcastle. So they went and sat down, spoke with Rena, and Rena said, hey, you know what? First of all, you can just pay the fine for Hootie. It's a very small crime. It's going to cost you 10 gold. You didn't even ask if you could pay the fine, just pay the fine. But in terms of getting this information out of Stormcastle, he did reveal that Magister Hester Barch is able to read minds and that she can go down and get that information. He wrote a letter explaining the situation. Well, not explaining, actually. He wrote a letter explaining that there is some goodwill here, that he would really appreciate this help, and that he will owe her a favor, which is going to come in and cost him another day in the future. Granted, she's 70 as a human, so I mean, she might want to use that favor soon. So Giorno and Watch returned with that letter. They explained the situation to Hester Barch, who then saw the importance, went downstairs, spoke with Stormcastle, and he said, I don't know what you mean. And the first thing she said was, thank you for your information, because she read his mind, and it's the first thing on his mind. He doesn't want that information to get out. So finally, she got Hootie out because they paid the gold, they got the information, they all went outside, they convened, and then we got to move on to the very next stage in chapter 4. The players are going to the old tower where we will continue our story. Now, I'm not really sure how it's going to go. I believe we are definitely going to finish chapter 4 in the next session and perhaps start chapter 5, which is really awesome because the players really gunned through it this week. I really feel like because of the previous 2 weeks ago session that they really want to get this going, they want to get the ball rolling, and so now they're really just going yes and yes and yes and how can we do this, who can we get help with, what can we offer them, what can they do for us. They're really starting to think more about their options in the city, which I absolutely love. So check out the future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. So if you managed to wait until the end of the video, the thing that I want to say that was really great that happened was in regards to the 7-mast theater that my players at the end of the session spoke about, like, hey, did we insight anyone in regards to who they were today? Like Larry L. Silverhand or the guy at the theater? They realized that they hadn't, and funnily enough, when they were talking about where we had to meet, they're like, oh, the 7-mast theater. They realized, there's 6 Mast Lords of Waterdeep and 1 Open Lord of Waterdeep. That makes 7. So that makes sense that that's why she would meet there. Maybe there's more backstory to it. And as a DM, watching my players kind of put that together, even though it's not true, was really, really cool. So by all means, DMs, please make sure that you listen to what your players are saying, because you could play off on it later on. I don't think I'll play off on this one, but I just thought it was a very cool thing.